Mao's going to ring the big bell. Listen all the way down to the bottom of your belly. And when you can't hear the sound of the bell anymore, just quietly raise your hand. Okay, ready? Okay, let's listen. I'm going to say the 3 refuges. So I'll say it and you can say it right after me. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
The goodness and wisdom that is inside of me.
The goodness and wisdom that is inside of me.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
Teachings arising everywhere.
Teachings arising everywhere.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
The community of all beings.
The community of all beings.
Today's story is called The Winter Witch. Dewey! hissed Stephen, and tried to pull his dog back as his dog cornered Polly, his stepmother's cat, but it was too late. Put that dog outside, said his father. But Dad, it's Christmas. Yeah, well, he's going to have to live outside until he learns how to behave, said his dad. Thought Stephen as he stamped to the door. put his dog outside. He came back, he got his coat and his hat. He glanced across the room. He could see the candles burning on his dad's altar, glowing against the golden Buddha. He could see the lights on the Christmas tree. He could see the menorah sitting on the mantelpiece. He could see his sister Sarah sitting on the couch with his stepbrother Ari giggling. The whole thing made him frown. "I'm going for a walk," he said. "Don't go far," said his dad. His stepbrother said, "Watch out for the witch." And his sister laughed. Outside, he and Dewey walked through the trees, down to the frozen creek, and then followed the creek. They came to a steep embankment, and Dewey ran down. And Stephen went down pretty fast too, because he tripped and he went head over heels down the snowy hill. He came up with a face full of snow and he yelled, "I hate Christmas." Can it be true? Came a voice. "A boy who hates Christmas?" He looked up, and there was a small dark figure by one of the trees. An old woman. Maybe there was a witch. Dewey barked around her feet, and Stephen called him back. "Dewey, come here." "Ah, Dewey," said the woman. "What's your boy's name?" Dewey barked at her. She said, I didn't quite get that." He said, "Stephen." She said, "Do you really hate Christmas?" He said, "I fell." She said, "I fall every day, but it doesn't ruin my day, especially not Christmas. You know, you're on my land." He said, "I'll be going now." She said, "No, I'm not done with you yet." He started to back up very slowly, and it felt as though a tree root came out and grabbed his foot because he fell down again. From behind the tree, she pulled an axe, and Stephen squealed. She said, "I would really appreciate if you would chop a hole in the ice right here. That's about this big," because they were standing next to a place where the creek had formed a pond. And as he looked across the pond, he could see a house that was dark except for one window, which showed some light. She said, "You know, you don't have to believe everything that your new brother says to you." He got to his feet and saying to himself, "There's no such thing as witches. There's no such thing as witches." He took the axe and he went to work chopping a hole in the ice. When the dark water came up through the surface, she said, "Why don't you come inside with me? We'll have some hot chocolate and you can get warm." He said, "What about Dewey?" Because he thought to himself, you know, cats always seem to live with witches. She said, "Yes, I have cats, but they'll take care of themselves." So Stephen and Dewey followed the old woman, whose name was Maddie, inside her house. Dewey went up to a cat, and the cat swiped him across the nose. Wow. He took a few steps back. He tried it again with another cat. Same thing. After a few minutes, he just went in front of the fire, turned 3 circles, and laid down right next to a big orange cat. Maddie came out of the kitchen with 2 cups of hot chocolate, and she handed one to Stephen and sat down. She said, you don't really hate Christmas, do you?" He said, "That's bad. And he told her all about the divorce and how his dad had gotten remarried and how Deborah and Ari celebrated Hanukkah, and his dad was a Buddhist, and he celebrated Dana, which he called Danamas. And Christmas was in there somewhere, and his stepmother had cooked a salmon for dinner, fish for Christmas, and his dad had cooked roasted vegetables, fish and vegetables for Christmas. And in the old days, Christmases were great. They always had turkey. Now his mom lived in California, and there was no snow. Nothing was the way it used to be, and nothing was okay. Mm. Mm. Come here, she said to him, and she brought him to the window that looked out over the pond. And there, drinking from the water coming up through the hole in the ice, was a mountain lion. She was quietly drinking the water, beautiful, strong, and then she slipped into the woods. Just wait, said Maddie. And then from out of the woods came a fox, tiptoeing up to the hole and drinking. And then 2 deer. A raccoon wobbled its way across the ice to get some water. Some rabbits came hopping. 3 crows came fluttering up. And Maddie told him about what all the creatures in the woods did to make it through the winter. She said, I don't bring a tree inside, but what I do is I string up popcorn and cranberries outside so the birds and the squirrels have things to eat. And then I make a nice fire. So I have the light from the fire to keep me warm inside. She said, the lights on the altar, the candles in the menorah, the lights on the Christmas tree, the log in my fire. The creatures outside, all they have is the starlight, but it's all the same light. She said, you better be getting on home or they'll think you've been made into witch's stew. She gave him a lantern to carry, and she said, I want that lantern back. You come back and you bring your skates. You can skate on the pond. So he walked home through the woods with Dewey and the lantern. And when he got home, he stomped the snow off his boots. And he went inside and he told them about the mountain lion and the deer and the foxes. And they all listened. They went outside to look at the stars. And they all made wishes. Stephen wished, I wish for the chickadees to make it through this cold, cold night. His sister Sarah wished, I wish for a Scrabble game with all of us tomorrow. His new brother Ari wished, I wish for more presents for Dinamas Christmas. His stepmother Deborah wished, I wish for the winter witch to come have dinner with us on New Year's Day. His father said, I wish, and then he started crying. They all hugged him. He said, I'm so happy, and I'm so sad, and I'm so happy. And Stephen knew exactly what he meant. That night in bed, when he looked out of his window, he could see a million stars twinkling, and inside of his chest, he could feel a little spark of light. And he took that little light and he sent it out to his mother. He sent it out to the chickadees. He sent it out to his father. He sent it out to Dewey. Even to his sister and his stepmother and his really annoying little brother, Ari. He sent that light out. and said to himself, it's all one light. And looking at the stars, he went to sleep. All right, so there are things to do. Yeah, there are things to do for people who would like to be in the children's groups. And I think the children's leaders are ready for you. So,
Thank you, Bob.
thank you.
So for everyone that's here to join the families program, we will have activities for the children, all of the little children to through teenagers, and we will all go together out into the foyer and get ready to go outside. We anyone who's here who falls into the teen category, we have our teen leaders are happy to meet with you.
They're right over here.
Yep. Osogol, Roxana, and Shigong are happy to meet with you out here to talk about what we'll be doing together. So you have some folks to connect with. And then we're all gonna go outside. We'll meet outside the temple. It's actually quite lovely. Balmy. Oh my gosh, sunny, over 40 degrees. I'm an outdoor educator, so for me this is like, oh, this is great. So we are gonna meet out there and just get to know each other a little bit better, and then we'll break off into our groups. And parents, Mo Sam is here this morning, and so parents are welcome to go with Mo Sam for mindful parenting, and then we will reconvene outside at 11:30. Okay.
Where's the mindful parenting? It is in the historic temple library, in the yellow house. And so the people that are going to be with the smallest ones. And then the next stage.
Depending on how many, we might, well, we'll do a count and then determine once we're outside where we'll meet.
All right.
So how shall we all go out? Shall we do some chanting as you go out?
Let's do it.
So please, let's everyone stand. Chant our families and their children. Thank you for seeing your asking questions. Everybody come. And then everybody else can
Is there anyone here who's a teenager that needs to be welcomed over? No more
Like inside or outside?
Sorry. It's just that last time, all of our teenagers didn't go out, and so we'd like them. The leaders are really wonderful. We're working with them, so. Yeah. So now Bhavana is going to lead us in going back to meditation, and she will give us a talk at the end. So.
Rubbing your hands together gently and placing them over your eyes, giving yourself this beautiful dark warm space. Gently massaging the space between your brows, the brows themselves, your temples. Massaging all the way around the outer rim of the ear, the back of the neck, the crown of the head, and then moving and stretching in any way that is helpful for your very own body. So my name is Bhavana, and I am a student in the seminary. I run a small meditation initiative in Detroit, which is why you don't see me around very much. But I'm really honored to be here today. And the theme of the service is generosity. And I had a talk written up. I had a talk. Then I went to a winter fair yesterday, and there was a little table, and there were two young women who I actually meditate with sometimes, and an old typewriter, and a sign that said "Poems, $1." And I was like, I need a poem. And they said, "Oh, what do you want it to be about?" And I said, "Generosity." And they said, "Okay, we'll go wander around for a while and come back." So I did. I wandered around a while. and I came back, and they had this poem ready for me that they wrote together. So it was a together poem, and I have it taped into my book here. I'm going to untape it. And the O on the typewriter puts these little holes right through the paper. So it's already like it's got emptiness inherent in it. And I read the poem and I said, I would kind of like to use this in my Dharma talk tomorrow. Would you be okay with that? And they were like, that would be wonderful. And so I unwove my Dharma talk and I wove it around this poem. So I'm going to read the poem to you and then read the reweaving. So this is by Maya and Veronica. Generosity. How generous the sun is for staying this long. How generous this day is for leaving. How generous. The crow remembers my face when I forget his. The child forgives my transgressions, rooted in forgetfulness. Generosity. How the world is made and remade, laid bare. How generous the sun is for staying so long. So many millions of things are working. So many billions of interactions are moving, and we get a sunny December day. How generous this day is for leaving. The comings are generous. The leavings are generous. Generosity is not an either or, but a yes and. How generous the crow remembers my face when I forget his. We inter-are. Generosity is centering the inextricable mutual interdependence of all beings and things. Second Nature Earth says, I think it's a deep consolation to know that spiders dream, that dolphins have accents, that lions can be scared by a lone mongoose, that otters hold hands, that ants bury their dead, that crows identify faces, that there isn't their life and our life, or your life and my life, that it's just one teetering and endless thread, and all of us are entangled with it as deep as entanglement goes. The child forgives my transgressions rooted in forgetfulness. And we get to the hurt heart of it. We get to the generosity of spirit with each other and with ourselves. How we handle hurt. Having hurt one another, having been hurt ourselves. How we allow connection through muddy water, through the undefined. The practice of generosity points to allowing our sadness and grief to also have a place at the table, to be welcomed and honored as teachers. In my small group in Detroit, we've been holding grief circles, spaces where each person gets a chance to express their grief, whatever it is that they're holding or feeling. Each person gets time to talk. We journal, the next one speaks. We journal. When all are done, we dance, because everybody has brought a song to share, and then we eat together. After the third sessions, we started calling these times good grief circles. Because the experience was of the lifting of a weight and ease that came after we shared. Taking the time to grieve personally and communally is generous. It allows us the full scope of our humanity. It allows us to be present with others. There are traditional cultures who this pattern is modeled after, who have used ceremony and ritual to offer grief, the generosity of time and attention. If we don't become generous with grief, we spend our time resisting the truth of what has changed. Grief puts us in collaboration with the truth. We can acknowledge change, that is difficult. Then we can act. Turning towards each other involves generosity in this way. Generosity, how the world is made and remade. That which we have made, we can unmake, and then consciously now remake, from Sylvia Wynter. The world is not already finished. It depends on our participation for its continued creation. In every moment, then, there's the chance of change. In a field guide to getting lost, Rebecca Solnit says, worry is a way to pretend that you have knowledge or control over what you don't. And it surprises me, even in myself, how much we prefer ugly scenarios to the pure unknown. Generosity as a practice nudges us into scenarios which have beauty, into imaginations which foster hope. We learn to exist in the in-between with grace and generosity. I met an author yesterday and she told me about writing her book. She said, I felt so alone. And then I realized that when I stepped towards imagination, it stepped towards me. There's a little quote from a book called Mira and the Big Story. It goes, Mira, let me tell you something about stories. Stories can make you bigger, not on the outside, of course, but on the inside. They can stretch your mind and heart. But a story can make you smaller if it takes up all the space in your mind and heart. When new people or new ideas come along, there's no room for them. Whenever you hear a story, you must ask yourself, what is this story doing to me? Is it making me bigger or smaller? Generosity is making the world and remaking it. So our stories, our imagination, our space to live is bigger. The very last stanza is just one line. Laid bare. Let us meet the moment as it is. And let us ask what it needs. I'll read the poem one more time. Generosity. How generous the sun is for staying this long. How generous this day is for leaving. How generous the crow remembers my face when I forget his. The child forgives my transgressions, rooted in forgetfulness. Generosity, how the world is made and remade, laid bare.
You can have questions and comments if you
Sure, questions and comments? Poems?
Where was this wonderful fair?
Oh, okay.
Actually, the microphone.
So,
Thank you.
I just wondered where the fair was. It sounds like a wonderful booth. The poem.
Oh, it was at the Detroit Waldorf School.
Okay. What a great idea.
You had something right, or? I didn't see anything on the computer. I don't know if I have that much to offer, but I do appreciate the poem especially. Did someone write that you know, or is that someone else?
No, those, when I said there was a table and an old manual typewriter and they said poem $1, yeah, that was the.
They didn't write them. Oh my. I was thinking like, so you had to sit down in the desk for days.
Yeah, it's amazing, all this wisdom that we have all around us.
So Barbara, how about telling us a little bit about yourself and your Buddhist experience and history? Or anything else?
I was born into this world to be a Buddhist. Yeah, I started meditating when I was in my late 20s. I was a single mom, kind of like desperate, and my mom was going to college. And one day she handed me this book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. She's like, you might like this. My professor gave it to me. And I taught myself to meditate from it, and like immediately loved meditation. 15 years. I'm in Detroit. It's my first day on my new job in the Unitarian Universalist Church as the director of religious education, and this Buddhist temple moves in on the same day. And the teacher is a woman, and we're actually sort of sharing the same space, like the place that I use for childcare, she would like to use as an office. And so we have to like do these Home Depot runs together and get sheetrock. And I realized a couple things that I had never considered being a Buddhist, because like one of these unknown walls I had built up inside of me was that like just like women are not Buddhists, right? Like I had never really explored it, but you know. And and then the first question I asked her was like, you know, maybe what many of us come into Buddhism thinking, like, is enlightenment scary? You know, because I had like all these children and I couldn't really go anywhere, right? Like I was not interested in leaving my life. I was interested in like making my life more livable. So anyways, I started going to the temple at 10 and running the services at the UU church at 11. And after a year, I was like, okay, I'm just going with the temple. So that was my first deep dive into Buddhism and the study of Buddhism. And I went through the seminary there and was a Dharma teacher. And then, you know, as maybe people who are older know, sometimes, you know, there can be like big disruptions. So there were like some big disruptions in my family, and I stepped back for a while and, you know, had this sense of needing a ripening of my practice. And then, as Haji says, I stepped in the same order twice. So I stepped into the seminary here. And as you know, with the river, it's never the same order twice. But the river could still have the same name. And, you know, it's this beautiful, deep, rich field of support that is the Dharma. And I know so little, and I've been practicing so long. And yet, you know, I have a really deep love for it. So, that's kind of my story.
What are you curious about, friends? It's an opportunity for speaking and hearing from someone with a lot of experience, but she doesn't think she has any.
Have you figured out if enlightenment is scary?
Yeah, I figured it out.
So what's the results? What's the results here? We need to know.
I think everybody needs to figure that out for themselves.
Nowhere.
You said that you did a lot with people that are grieving, and you had a quote that I liked about that as well. That was something like, grieving is about accepting things as they are. So, as someone sounds like they have a lot of maybe understanding around that and experience with people in those spots. Is there any other kinds of understandings around grief or thoughts that you have around grief that you think are valuable?
Thank you for that question. I looked at my Dharma talk and I was like, it's supposed to be about generosity, and I'm writing about like grief and but I think it's important to, as they say, set grief a place at the table, to allow it to be an emotion that's acceptable and that lives with us. And that if we don't acknowledge sadness over change, it's quite possible that we'll never be able to fully acknowledge change. And really moving into acceptance of change offers us some freedom to walk with things as they are. So it's this invitation to, like, I'm a Buddhist teacher, right? Like, so there's this picture, like, aren't you always supposed to be happy, right? So it's kind of a courageous thing to say, let's talk about grief. And I think for all of us, somehow there's that picture of like, aren't you supposed to be okay? Like, aren't you? And to actually have spaces where grief is heard and grief is held as part of community. Like, this is not something strange.
Mm.
And it's not something that doesn't happen to all of us, right? It just seems to me that offers us generosity in being like who we really are. So that's and that can be like the boy in the story, right? I don't like the way things are. Like, there's a need to like actually recognize that in yourself and be sad and happy and sad in order to move into whatever the new situation is. And that can be with something personal, that can be with something social, that can be with the state of the world. Just generously accepting like all of us. All parts of all of us. Yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bhavana, continuing on this discussion around grief. One, when are your grief circles in Detroit? And two, in those spaces where you've been opening up the wisdom of what grief can teach us, and it's a very good teacher, I think. Have you found any kind of relationship between grief and praise? And what I mean by that is there's this teacher named Martine Prechtel, wrote this book of many books called Smell of Dust on Rain. he, in the book, argues that in order for us to actually feel joy, to actually experience the world of happiness, we actually must grieve. And he argues that in North America in particular, in Europe, Western Europe, European countries, we've removed ourselves from the grief process. He himself is Native American, an indigenous person in that respect. So it's very instrumental. And so I'm curious, in these practices that you're developing, have you found something similar or different? Or is there something in grief that leads people to understanding praise better?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Like if you freeze your feeling in one place, it's going to, the freeze is going to expand, right, to all other places. And this grief work has been, kind of sensitive and scary, right? So it was one other person and myself who did the first one. We were like, let's just try it. Let's just see. And then we expanded it to 4 people, and then we expanded it to 8 people. So we've been like very slowly looking to see how do we hold this? How do we do it? How do we do it together? And so the experience so far has been that it has been a real community builder to be able to have a space where it's okay to come in and share things that usually don't feel socially acceptable to share, basically. And to have it held. And then to dance, right? Like you bring a song and everybody, and then to eat, right? So the life affirming along with what? The fact that we grieve actually shows that we have life, right? It shows that we have love. It shows that we have. So to me, it's this unthawing. So somehow, what I notice in myself as I move into this, that it's scary, right? So that says something to do about like how our culture holds grief. Not particularly well. And so that's as far as we've gotten with it. Yeah.
Question. You said you loved meditation right away. I wish I could say the same. I struggle with it. I do a variety of different things. I find that my mind is quieter when my body's in motion, so yoga and walking. But when I'm sitting still, if it's not guided meditation, I find it very challenging. And, I'm not judgmental about it. I just remind myself that I'm drifting and to come back, but it's constant. There's very little space where it's just kind of smooth sailing. And I've been working on it for a while, and I wonder if you have any tips or techniques, or the breath, obviously, and chanting helps immensely, but if I'm utterly silent, I find that very challenging.
I can speak from my own experience. So when I met meditation, it was a very intense time for me. I was in a lot of pain, a lot of confusion. So when I came across this teaching, this is an intense teaching. So he says, sit in lotus position, right? So I'm doing this, right? And you have your back straight and your ears, and my body is like and then let your thoughts move out, right? So there's a certain intensity of energy that went into my meditation practice from the very beginning. And I actually think that that intensity has a purpose and a use. That there's a need to offer energy to your practice in order to really move into it. And sometimes we think it's just supposed to be easy. It's just supposed to, like, we're just supposed to float. But that's not my experience of the practice. My experience of the practice is like, when I allow my practice to be as intense as I am, it offers me something back. And so that's my personal experience, that there's some will forces that go into this. And they are helpful. Yeah. So there's not a really popular answer, but that's my experience, yeah.
Thank you.
What are some of the songs that you dance to in the grief circle? Can you think of any recent ones?
Oh, wow. There was one from Rising Appalachia that had to do with silence, which was really beautiful.
Silence?
Mm-hmm. There were lots of them that I didn't know. Like, I really liked them, but I was like, I have no idea, like, who this is. So that's also another thing, you get to learn lots of new songs. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I can't remember anything else right now. Yeah.
What did you yourself sing?
Oh, we didn't sing. We brought something recorded so we could play it and dance. Yeah. Though to bring a song to sing would also be beautiful.
Then I guess by extension, break out your best dance moves. What do you do?
That was the last question. Touche. Okay, so do you want to, like, there's tea and
Yeah,
announcements?
For great vow.
Oh, the 4 great vows.
Yeah.
Great.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So it's so great to see you all this morning. How many are here for the first time? Oh, that is really great. Great. So I just have a few things to say about some upcoming events. And we have some very special events coming up as we get towards the end of the year. The first is a working person's retreat from December 26th to December 30th. And this is an opportunity to sit with the Sangha in the early morning at 6 a.m. and also at the evening at 6:30 p.m. So the idea is that it works with your work schedule. So we encourage you to join in, and there's also a delicious vegetarian breakfast that will be offered, and there's a sign-up sheet in the foyer for that. We also have a year-end candle lighting service, which is called the Kindling Light of Wisdom Mind, that will be held on December 31st from 7 to 9 p.m. It's a time, of course, of contemplation, and so we encourage you to join us for that too. And then there's this New Year's Day celebration the next morning, January 1st at 11 a.m.
We also offer regular meditation classes. And the next one of those starts on Thursday, January 9th. And those will be from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. on Thursday evenings. And then there's an opportunity to do the same meditation course in one overnight session. And that will be January 24th and 25th. We have yoga on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 8 p.m. As you experienced this morning, we have family services once a month. And so the next one of those will be the second Sunday of the month in January. Let's see. There is also vacancies for the residential visitor program. And so this is a time when you can come and kind of be, let's say, a practice resident, or to try out being a resident for a few days, to join in on the temple's everyday activities. And so if you're interested in that, you can ask, I don't know, who do you ask? All right, excellent. So I think those are the main things. We have.
Recovery Dharma will meet in the historic Buddha Hall, the big yellow house right next door, in the library, the same place the I think it was Mindful Parenting Group is meeting. Just remember to take your shoes off. Up the steps, come in, take your shoes off, keep walking straight, you'll run into us. Yeah.
The temple is also supported by your kind and generous donations of both time and money. For time, every Saturday at 3 o'clock, we have work session, and you're very much invited to join us then. And we have a fishbowl out in the foyer, and I believe Haju is going to talk about the fundraising appeal.
Since last week, we doubled the amount that we had. Thank you very much. Thank
Wow.
you, generosity. Yeah, so I would like to, we are now at 11,193, and we're hoping to get to 28,600. So thank you so much. Last week, the donation bowl was the fullest we've seen it in a long time. And we still need some more. And because I was telling you that of the things we're doing, we're repairing the front sidewalk, we're getting a new sound system here, especially for the people at home, because apparently it's all staticky. People are seeing us on the Zoom. Yeah. And also we are continuing to do landscaping, and we are, some more things, create another entrance and better window in one of our buildings. So all of that adds up to 28,600. So if you could help with that, it's all about us continuing to keep going, and in these, whatever the times may bring for us. So thanks for your generosity. There's some little envelopes and a little card to fill out, which is helpful. Or if you wish to use a credit card, there's a machine that Mom will be operating. That's Mom. Okay, thank you for continuing your generosity. Thank you. And Ravana, thank you for your being with us today. Ravana's in our training program, and as she said, she's doing a training program for the second time. So she did 3 years when she was at Detroit many years ago. She's back for 3 years with us now, and will be ordained next June. So we're really lucky to have her with us, and just offer our bow, and then would you now lead us in the great vows?
All beings, one body,
all beings one body.
I vow to liberate.
I vow to liberate.
Blind passions one root.
Blind passions one root.
I vow to terminate.
I vow to terminate.
Dharma gates one mind.
Dharma gates one mind.
I vow to penetrate.
I vow to penetrate.
The great way of Buddha.
The great way of Buddha.
I vow to realize.
I vow to realize.
Please stand.
And we would appreciate your assistance in preparing for the next event in this room. So mats and cushions that touch the carpet remain where they are. And then the rest we put away. So the mats on this side of the room on the stage. The mats on this side and the other side of the room go in the back corner. Those who've done it before can leave this up.
I think we might have tea.
There is a little wiring in my cushion over there. Should we switch it out for one that's in my cushion? Right there. I still have it. I'll take one of those cushions. Then we can find some. Yes. I'll walk around to the other side of the school.
It feels like so early for me today. No, I was not. But, it was a busy weekend.
If we can stand it, it's for us.